Hello, folks. I'm sorry this is a day late getting out. I'm still feeling kind of under the weather, but I am getting better. So basically, I just want to kind of not do a speed run, like that would be an injustice to you guys, but to go um not step by step, but give you the main idea of the PowerPoint and what was discussed in class. So if you will open up your PowerPoints, we will go through them together. And feel free to pause this video as you open up your PowerPoints and whatnot. So, how the heck do we write? So there are kind of there are more schools of thought than just this, but basically there are kind of two camps. On the one hand, we have the kind of write anything as long as you're writing camp, and I am part of that myself. Please ignore my cat. We encourage crappy rough drafts, getting anything done, as long as you get something done. A good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow, which essentially means getting it done is better than getting it perfect. If it's due tomorrow, just finish the thing. And, I have a revise and resubmit policy, so you can always turn it back in. Theorists Mike Rose and Peter Elbow subscribe to this school, and we will talk about them in a little bit. The other camp is more careful outlining, plan everything before you start, having those super detailed outlines of, okay, in this paragraph, I'm gonna talk about this, this, and this, and then in this paragraph, I'm gonna talk about this, this, and this. And that way you can fill in the blanks a little bit easier. And we have theorists like Flower and Hayes. Now, these two schools of thought don't necessarily not interact with each other. You can pick and choose what works for you. And so what I'm going to try and do with this lesson is give you some things that might potentially work for you. So, we have, excuse me, slide. We have a way to start your paper, which is thesis-based outlining. And if you have a thesis statement, you start with your thesis statement, and then you break it down into its components to come up with your body paragraphs. So for instance, if your thesis was Chicago-style pizza is superior to New York-style pizza due to its crust, which I have taken this thesis from the lovely Dr. Bender. So you would look over your thesis and break it down into its components to get your main body paragraphs. So on the next slide, we see we've underlined Chicago-style pizza, we've underlined New York-style pizza, and we've underlined its crust. We've also underlined the word superior. So we know we need to define what is Chicago-style pizza, we need to define what is New York-style pizza, how are the crusts composed, and we also need to define what do we mean by superior. The other way, on the next slide, of going about things is reverse engineering your paper. So you have an outline or your draft or your whatnot, and you go through it with a highlighter or a pen or whatever tool you desire. Highlight the main points and arguments that you make in each paragraph. And if there's a particular point that stands out to you, something that you've said a couple of times, something that you've put a lot of emphasis on, that's probably your thesis. And now you've done a really cool magic trick. On the next slide, we have the fantastic Benedict Cumberbatch telling us that not every style works for every student. I'm giving you, my idea with giving you these tools is not to say these are the only tools to use or these are the tools that I'm going to make you use. It's just to give you some idea of the things that are out there that you can use. So, that said, there are some theorists that I've given you. I've given you Mike Rose, Peter Elbow, and Flower and Hayes. And basically, I've just given you a really quick overview of each of their theories. And this isn't to like test you on it later. This isn't to say, oh, you need to, pick one of these people and go with their plan and only their plan. Again, this is just to give you some basic ideas. Like, for instance, Mike Rose doesn't like thesis-focused planning, which I just taught you how to do. He doesn't like the 5-paragraph essay layout, which I think is very useful as kind of a bare bones way of laying out your essay. He doesn't like aiming for perfection right away, which I am all the way for. He has this method that he calls the tote method, which is to put something in your essay, test it out, which operate, which is to see how it works in the overall paper. If it doesn't work, tweak it, test it again, maybe move it, and then once you've found the right place, the right wording, etc., exit. Move on to the next thing. Now, to me, that sounds kind of math and science based, and he purportedly does not like math and science based rules, but you do you, Mike Rose. He's kind of in the camp of the write what you can when you can, as long as you're writing something. Peter Elbow says to just, trust yourself and don't ask too many questions, just go with it. He says something really cool, which is to look at writing as though it were magic. And I agree with that, because once you, the student, put something down on paper, something exists in the world that hasn't existed before, and I think that's really cool. But I'm a nerd, so. He says, Inarticulateness stems from a fear of wrongness, which basically means you get writer's block from a fear of being wrong. So to embrace the badness, just let yourself be wrong for a little bit and move on and come back and fix it later. And then sharing, writing and accepting feedback is very important. Peer reviews, going to the right site, coming to me with your drafts, all that sort of fun stuff. And last but not least, we have Flower and Hayes, or Hayes and Flower. They're product versus process oriented, which means the end product is more important than how you get there. I'm more process oriented, which means I believe the journey is more important than the destination. How you get there is more important than what happens when you get there, which is why I emphasize drafting and outlining and things like that. They're much more goal oriented, so to have a plan and, have everything very much in place before you even start writing. And then you have your planning, sentence generation, and revising, which basically just means brainstorming, writing the thing, and then editing the thing. Um, you should start your planning with a well organized body of topic based knowledge, which means you should do your research before you write your paper. And that's pretty solid advice. And have demanding but manageable goals for your writing. So basically, only you guys know what your limits are for daily writing. Like Stephen King writes 6 pages every day, and maybe you don't want to write 6 pages every day, and that's fine. But basically, to know yourself and to know what works for you. So that's kind of the lesson as a whole. I just wanted to give you some tools to help you on your essay writing journeys. And hopefully, these tools were indeed helpful. So I will see you guys next week.